her attorney, and the people are represented. We do have Detective Meyer still on the stand, subject to direct by Mr. Smith. And all 12 plus 2 in the box. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all back. Mr. Smith, if you'd like to continue.
Thank you. Detective Meyer, when we left off yesterday, we listened to your first two contacts with Ms. Limon. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Based on the information that you received in those interviews, what steps did you take in your investigation?
At that point in the investigation, we were trying to obtain information from Ms. Limon regarding possible subject who may be upset with Robert Limon, trying to catch some sort of lead for the investigation. At that point in time, we spoke with several other friends who were friends of Rob Limon to ask them if they had any information regarding subject who may be upset with Robert Limon.
Now, in one of those, in the second interview, Detective Kimmel made a statement about how he asked about open relationships. You recall that question?
Yes, sir.
Where did that information come from?
I believe the information had come from the cellular telephone, just noticing the pictures that were on the phone from other women that were nude, and so that was just a question we wanted to eliminate.
So you didn't have any specific knowledge at that point about their marriage, their relationship. You were just following up on a cellular phone.
That's correct. At that point, we were just following up with the information from the phone that we had received.
Now, you said you spoke with some friends of Robert and Sabrina Limon to do other follow-up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who did you speak with?
I believe the next friends that we contacted were Jason Bernatine and Kelly Bernatine.
I want to go back to 1582 Goodrick Drive. That location, is it in Kern County?
Yes, it is.
There was some testimony yesterday regarding signs to the front of that building. You recall that testimony?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may approach. Have an item, Mark.
Yes.
People's 8 are next in order.
If I may approach the witness.
Yes.
If you could review the packet of photographs, please.
Yes, sir.
Detective Meyer, do you recognize the photographs contained in People's 8?
Yes, sir, I do.
What are they photographs of?
Those are photographs from the initial scene the night of the incident. Those were taken by one of the technical investigators.
Are they an accurate representation of what you yourself observed when you went to the crime scene August 17, 2014?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would request People's 8 be moved into evidence at this time, be allowed to publish.
Chair, any objection?
Submitted.
To be admitted. Proceed, Mr. Smith.
Starting with page 1, purely going to be asking about the front of the building. Do you recognize the BNSF shot in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Where is it located at?
The BNSF shop is the location just on the other side of the Toyota SUV with the large roll-up door open.
Okay. So in these photographs that you viewed where the roll-up door is open, that is the BNSF shop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Page 2, People's 8.
That is a picture facing east into the shop with the large roll-up door and the man door. BNSF railroad truck on the right of the photograph, and then the one inside the shop.
Page 3 of People's 8.
This is a photograph facing northbound, showing the front of the BNSF shop along with the two vehicles.
Page 4 of People's 8.
This is a photograph facing, it'd be northeast of the BNSF shop, the front of the shop, with the large roll-up door, the man door in the window, and the BNSF truck along with the, looks like a Pontiac Grand Am.
There is some writing on a small white door to the front. Do you recall what that writing is?
I believe that's the suite number, which would be 60.
Page 5 of People's 8.
This would be a photograph facing, it'd be southeast, the same front of the BNSF shop, depicting the BNSF work truck that Sean Ware arrived in, the large roll-up door, and looking into the shop, you could see Robert Limon's personal vehicle and the office.
Page 6 of People's 8.
This was a close-up photo of the Toyota SUV that was parked just to the north of the shop. It belonged to the people who own the shop just to the north of BNSF.
Page 7, People's 8.
This is a photograph of the truck that was just north of the shop also, belonging to the people who own the business to the north of BNSF.
Page 8, People's 8.
This would be a close-up photograph of Sean Ware's work vehicle, BNSF.
And then last page, page 9 of People's 8.
And this is a close-up photograph of the Pontiac Grand Am belonging, I believe Sean Ware owned that vehicle.
Now the parking stop, there is some writing. Do you recognize the writing?
Yes, sir, I do.
What does that say?
It says BNSF.
Now as to Suite 6D, was there any obvious signs that denoted that it was a BNSF shop?
No, there wasn't. In fact, I had to look closely at the parking block to see even the writing that was written there on the block.
How about when you drove into the industrial complex? Did you see any signs that denoted a BNSF shop was located in the park?
No, I didn't see any signage at all. Actually, when I got to the location, I found it because of the crime scene tape and the patrol vehicles that were there.
Now, in the course of your investigation, did you learn Jonathan Hearn's cellular phone number?
I did.
Okay, and what number did you learn belonged to Jonathan Hearn?
It's an area code of 760-987-3569.
Now, based on that information, what requests did you make, or what search warrants did you enter?
At that point in time, I had felt that he was possibly involved in the murder of Robert Limon, so I authored a search warrant for his phone records and sent him off to the telephone company to receive those records.
Okay. Did you review those records at some time?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you see a subsequent number that was a common number called by Jonathan Hearn?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what number is that?
It's also an area code of 760-998-7958. And that number showed up about on April 25th of 2014. And between that time of April 25th to September 1st, there were over 7,000 communications with that telephone number, either by text message or voice call.
Based on that, what follow-up investigation did you do for that cellular phone number?
At that point in time, I got another search warrant authored by a judge and sent that information off to the cellular telephone provider. They returned information on that cell phone, however, not having a subject's name attached to that phone number. At that point in time, I figured it was a phone, either a pay-as-you-go phone or what's commonly referred to as a burner phone.
Did Did you later find out who was in possession of the phone with the number 760-998-7958?
Yes, sir.
Who was in possession of that phone?
I later learned that that phone was possessed by Sabrina Limon.
Now, there was some testimony yesterday relating to the light fixture within the shop that appeared to have some damage. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, sir.
Did you yourself look at that same light fixture?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, what did you do?
A few days later, I went back to the shop in Tehachapi to take a look around, just kind of getting a feel of the scene where it occurred at. And while I was there, I did take a look at the light fixture and actually retrieved a ladder from one of the employees and went up on the ladder to take a look at the light fixture. And looking at that, I noticed there was some significant damage, a scratch, where that one bulb would have been at that fell and hit the ground.
Did you also request the technical investigators do some follow-up swabbing in the BNSF shop?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, what did you request be done?
At that point in time, when I went back to check that, I wanted to check swabs for DNA touch DNA inside the office, and so we swabbed the drawers were people that basically the drawers from the desk that were opened up and the files were out. So we checked all the handles and stuff there.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Terry Cross, please, sir.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Detective Meyer.
Good morning, sir.
I wanted to go over some of the testimony you provided yesterday. Specifically, I'll start with related to People's Exhibit 6. These are the video capture photos that you testified about.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those are the ones that you personally obtained. Is that right?
I captured those from the video itself.
Yeah. With regards to the video itself, on there, is there an actual timestamp on the photo itself?
There is no actual timestamp on the photo itself. When it's captured from the screen, it doesn't include the timestamp on it.
Okay. But there was a timestamp on the video.
Yes, sir.
And the information that's below that photograph on each page, that's information that you put on there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that was clear.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the first photograph you indicate, in your notations below, there was approximately 12 hours, which would be, I believe, about 4:12 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's this first photograph, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've got, you indicate that there's a BNSF vehicle traveling in a westbound direction, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's on Goodrick itself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from the looks of it, the truck number is 26682, is that correct?
It appears to be a 2 at the end, yes, sir.
Okay. And then the next photograph you have is approximately, I believe you indicated was approximately 3 minutes later, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's of a motorcycle traveling eastbound at approximately 6:15 or 16:15 hours or 4:15 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So approximately 3 minutes after the truck leaves that area, driving in a westbound direction, you see a motorcycle going eastbound. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Next photograph with your notations on it. Again, you've got a person on a motorcycle, appears to be possibly the same motorcycle as in the prior photograph. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and this is approximately 2 minutes later after the prior photograph of the motorcycle going eastbound. You now have that motorcycle going westbound.
Yes, sir.
Okay. From those photographs, can you identify the person who's on the motorcycle?
No, sir.
And that's on all these photographs from Patco, right? And all these videos.
That's correct, sir.
Can't see any type of license plate, or you can't identify the person on the motorcycle. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Next one you've got is this possibly the same motorcycle traveling again in a eastbound direction at approximately 16:21 hours or 4:21 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's about 6 minutes. Double check that. 5 minutes after the first time where you see it heading westbound
Yes, sir.
from the prior photograph.
That's correct.
So basically, you've got this motorcycle going kind of in a loop, if you will. Would that be accurate?
Well, he traveled eastbound, westbound, and then back eastbound again.
Okay, so going in a loop, if you will.
Okay.
All right. Now at approximately 5:11 p.m., you've got a BNSF truck. A little bit more difficult to see the number, but it's traveling in a eastbound direction on Goodrich,
Yes, sir.
and that's at approximately 5:11 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that is.
Okay. And it appears that the number on the truck could be even my eyes aren't what they used to be, 286682 or something along those lines. Would that be accurate?
It's hard to tell. When he was traveling westbound, he was on the right side of the road, so it captured the vehicle a little closer. Eastbound, a little further away, driving in the right side of traffic.
So it could or might not be the same vehicle as you saw earlier, but it appears like it could be.
It appears, yes.
Okay. And that is at approximately 5:11 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then you've got the motorcycle appears to be possibly the same motorcycle as you saw earlier, going in a eastbound direction, now headed in a westbound direction. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's at approximately 5:48 p.m. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. So we've got about make sure I get this right, 37-minute differential between when you see the BNSF truck going in the eastbound direction before you see the motorcycle going in the westbound direction. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But you'd seen the motorcycle go by earlier in an eastbound direction, approximately 16:21 hours, right? So about a half hour before that,
Yes, sir.
before you see the truck coming back, right?
Yes, sir.
Which means that and you didn't see the motorcyclist going in a westbound direction before the truck arrived at 5:11 p.m. or went by at 5:11 p.m.
No, sir. The motorcycle wasn't leaving the area before 5:11.
Okay. So that means that the person on the motorcycle was at the scene for more than half an hour before the truck even arrived?
That's correct.
Okay. And the last photograph in this group of People's Exhibit 6 You've got another BNSF truck. Looks like it could be ending in a 3, but it's not easy to tell. Headed in a eastbound direction on Goodrick, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's at approximately 6:43 p.m., is that right?
That's correct. And what were you saying about the number was ending in a 3?
It could end in a 3. If you can tell from here, or it's not easy to see.
Okay, it's not easy to see.
Okay. So you can't tell whether or not it's a 2 or a 3 or what it is exactly, right?
From here, I cannot. No, sir.
Did you determine during the course of your investigation the truck or the number of the truck that Sean Ware was using on that evening?
We did through the interview with Sean Ware. I don't remember the number offhand.
And did you determine what truck number that Robert Limon was driving that day?
Yeah, through that interview with Sean Ware, he told us which truck that Rob had been driving.
Now, you spoke to Sabrina Limon the first time at approximately 1 in the morning of the actual night that she found out her husband had been killed, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And she was in a very emotional state when you spoke to her on the phone, wasn't she?
She appeared to be, yes, sir.
And when you interviewed her approximately 4 days later, she still was somewhat in an emotional state and in a state of shock, right?
At times during the interview, she did break down a little bit. At other times, she seemed pretty normal, handling it okay.
As best she could, obviously.
Yes, sir.
And I think it was during the course of the interview that she said that she had to be strong for her kids, right?
She did say that towards the end of the interview.
Now, you talked about having reviewed Rob Limon's phone. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And part of it was the reason you were asking questions about their lifestyle was because of the photographs that you saw on Rob's phone, right?
I briefly did have a chance to look at them before I drove to the scene, or to go speak with Miss Limon. It was real quick. I had later on taken a different look at the photos.
And there were a number of photos of Rob Limon and, in some instances, an unidentified female engaged in sexual acts. Would you agree? On his phone? Selfies, if you will.
There were some selfies. I don't remember any specific photographs of other females engaged in sexual acts. I do remember the selfies of people.
Okay. And those were nude photographs of other women, other than Ms. Limon, right?
If I recall, there were photographs of just the breast. I don't remember seeing any photographs with the bottoms removed.
You remember seeing nude photographs, at least of the waist up, of Kelly Bernatine on Robert Limon's phone, right?
I believe there were either one or two. Yes.
One where she was in the bathtub. You remember that one?
I don't recall. I do recall a photo of a female being in the bathtub, but at that point I thought it was Sabrina Limon. I don't recall exactly if it was Kelly or not.
Now, there was also a photograph
I believe there was a photograph of maybe 3 women. I guess you would call it a selfie, or maybe somebody else took the photograph. And I believe there are 3 women in the photograph. And maybe one of them was a brunette.
Well, you remember one of a selfie of a woman, brunette woman, upper torso, no clothes on Robert's phone.
I believe there was a photograph, yes.
Did you ever identify who that woman was?
I don't believe we did at the time.
Have you since?
I would be assuming at this point in time.
I'm sorry?
I would be assuming. I believe it's one of their friends, but I don't know if it is or not.
You never confirmed whether or not it was one of their friends or if it was another woman that Robert might have been involved with.
Your Honor, objection vague as to what photo we're talking about.
Assisting.
I'm sorry, I missed the objection.
Just vague as to the photo.
Okay. That was marked.
Defense Exhibit B, marked next in order.
B is in Bravo.
If I may approach.
Please.
Is this the selfie of the brunette, photograph of the brunette that you found on Robert Limon's phone?
Yes.
And you were never able to identify exactly who she was, is that right?
I believed it was one of their friends, Nancy, but I wasn't positive. The photo is a little grainy, and the phone is up in the face a little bit.
Did you ever ask Nancy if that was a photograph of her?
I don't recall asking her.
At some point during the course of your investigation, you found out that, in fact, Sabrina and Robert were actually involved in an open marriage, right?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And did you also find out during the course of your investigation that some of the people involved in their open marriage were Kelly Bernatine and her husband Jason?
I don't believe that was specifically stated as far as Kelly and Jason. I know they were active in their lifestyle, the partying style. But what I believe was learned was that they were not specifically connected to the wife swapping or spouse swapping.
But you became aware at some point, did you not, that Robert Limon was actually engaged in sexual intercourse with Kelly Bernatine, did you not?
I believe when I interviewed Kelly, she said that they were never actually involved in any sexual intercourse. There were some stuff happening, but not the actual intercourse with Kelly.
Okay, so Kelly Bernatine denied that they were involved in a swingers group, and she denied that she was engaged in any sexual activity with Robert Limon. Is that right?
She didn't specifically deny it, that they were involved in the swingers group. She just said that they were never involved in any actual intercourse.
But she never came out and said, yes, we're active in a swingers group.
I don't recall her ever telling me that.
Did Jason ever tell you that?
I don't recall him ever telling me that either.
And you've got nude photos of Kelly Bernatine on Robert Limon's phone. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And of another woman who we've not been able to identify at this point. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
So, if Ms. Bernatine was involved in this swingers group,
Rephrase that, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Did you ever ask Kelly Bernstein if she was part of the swingers group or involved with Robert Limon?
I believe I did, yes, sir.
Okay. And did she not deny that she was ever involved with Robert Limon?
She told me that they were involved with specific sexual things. However, she said that she had never had intercourse with Rob Limon.
Oh, okay. So it's a Bill Clinton type of a thing. I never had sex with that man. Is that what she claimed?
She didn't specifically say that. She actually said that that she chose not to have intercourse with Rob Limon. However, they would go out and party and have a good time, and there was never no intercourse.
Now, as a part of the interview that Sabrina provided you, the two interviews that we've heard so far during the course of your investigation, you mentioned the fact that she had called Robert a number of times throughout the day. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that she'd also texted him at some point in the evening when she became concerned about him. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Start with what's been marked as Defense Exhibit A. You reviewed the download of the report from Robert Lamone's phone, is that right?
I reviewed the photos. I did take a brief look at the call detail records, but mostly the photographs are on the phone.
Okay. But you were aware that his phone had been downloaded by the Hearn County Sheriff's Department. In other words, you've done what's known as a self-right download. Is that right?
That's correct. I was aware that one of our detectives had put in a request to have that done.
Okay. And you were the lead investigator on this case. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Directing your attention to that, is that the one of the parts of the report from the self-right download for Robert Lamone's phone? In other words, the text messages that were on his phone?
I haven't seen it in this format, but this appears to be from his phone.
Okay. Directing your attention to the first tab on that particular document. Is that a text message?
That's correct, it is.
A highlighted portion. Can you tell me who is that text message from?
It's from a telephone number 760-475-7844. It shows what would be a name apparently in the phone, and it says Sabrina.
And that'd be Sabrina Limon, right?
It could be from Sabrina Limon.
Okay. Well, you've been aware of, you've gotten search warrants for Sabrina's phones, have you not?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the number yourself?
Yes, this would be her cell phone.
Okay. And is there a text message from her to Robert Limon on that date? Well, let me ask you this. What date is that text message sent?
August 17th of 2014.
At approximately what time was it sent?
It says 17:05 and 56.
And that would be at approximately 5 p.m.?
It would be approximately 5 p.m. if it's in the Pacific Standard Time.
Which it indicates it's in, I believe, Greenwich Mean Time minus the 7, which would put it at the Pacific Standard Time, or Daylight Time, right?
Correct.
Okay. And what does the text message indicate from Ms. Limon to her husband?
Would you like me to read it to you?
Yes, sir.
Sure. It says, Bear, I hope you are having a good day. I'm going to my mom's to visit for a bit. Call me on my cell. Love you.
Go ahead.
Love you. Responder Rob with 3 happy faces.
Now, Ms. Limon had indicated to you during her interview that her mother had just gotten out of the hospital, correct?
Yes, she did.
And that she went over the day of the Rob was killed to see her mother, right?
Yes, she did.
And that is consistent with what she had told you when she was interviewed, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And if you turn to the next tab, are there 2 additional text messages from Ms. Limon to Robert Limon on that printout?
Yes.
And the first one, approximately what time was that sent?
Same date at 1900 hours, which would be 7 o'clock.
Okay. And what does she indicate with regards to, in that text message that she sent to Robert Limon on the day he was killed?
Would you like me to read it for you?
Yes, sir.
It says, Call me, Bear. I'm home now, getting the kids dinner and ready for school. Yay.
And this was a Sunday evening, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And she's indicating in the text that she's getting the kids ready for, would be probably the first day of school, right?
I believe that's what she told me. The following day was going to be the first day of school.
And the second text message, was that also sent on August 17th, 2014?
Yes, sir.
And at approximately what time was that text message sent?
At 2013 hours, which would be just after 8 o'clock.
And what does Ms. Limon indicate in the text to her husband?
Would you like me to read it for you?
Please.
Babe, I'm worried about you. Call me. Leanna wants to say goodnight.
Certainly, and at that point, Ms. Limon hadn't been notified about her husband's death yet, right? That you're aware of.
That I'm aware of.
In fact, you didn't, or any other police officer that you know of, made any death notification to Ms. Limon. Is that right?
No, we did not.
That was handled by some personnel from the railroad. Is that right?
I believe the railroad employees went out there and spoke with her. That's correct. Typically, we'll have our coroner's division make contact with the victim's family.
Was that done in this case?
It was. It appears to be done at a later time. If you guys remember the telephone call I had with her originally, she was speaking to a lady by the name of Rebecca, and Rebecca at the time was one of our coroners.
Defense Exhibit C, marked next in order.
C is in Charlie.
Witness, I'm going to show you if you recognize this, which has been marked as Defense Exhibit C. You recognize that? Detective Meyer?
This would be another examination from a cellular telephone from Celebrite.
Okay. And that's the same phone as in the text messages, is it not? Another part of the same report.
Appears to be the same phone.
Turning to the first tab on that item, there's a couple of portions that were highlighted. Could you indicate at approximately what day and time those calls were made? The first one that's highlighted.
The first one was on the same day, August 17, 2014. It shows at 09:33 hours and 40 seconds, which would have been about 9:30 in the morning.
And who was that call made to, based upon the indication from the printout? From whom to where?
This was an outgoing phone call made to their home phone number.
And that's at approximately, I think you said 9 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning?
9:33 and 40 seconds, approximately.
And what's the duration of that call?
It says 5:52, and that could either be in seconds or 552 seconds, but it's probably 5 minutes and 52 seconds.
And that's a call from Robert Limon to his home, to his wife.
That's correct.
And that's consistent with what Sabrina Limon had told you when you interviewed her, right?
Yes, she said they spoke on a couple times that day.
And one of the points she said was just shortly before she left for church, which she said church started at 10 or 10:30 in the morning. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then on that page, is there another highlighted call?
Yes, sir. There's two additional.
Okay. If you would go through those, please.
There is one same date at 1306 hours. That call was outgoing to the home also, and it was for appeared to be 30 seconds.
And that was an outgoing call from Robert to his home phone number at what time approximately?
1306 hours. So that would be 106.
And what's the next call that's made or read, indicated on that particular item that's Defense Exhibit C that's highlighted?
Just below that, there was a phone call outgoing to Sabrina Limon's cellular telephone, listed here as Brina. And that call was made at 13:06 hours and 41 seconds, which would have been approximately 41 seconds after the first call to the home.
And how long is the duration on that particular call?
A minute and 39 seconds.
So that would be consistent also with what Ms. Limon told you she recalled as to their conversations, at least up to that point during that day. Is that right?
That's correct.
Would you turn to the next, is there another highlighted phone call on that page, or is that all?
I believe that was it. Let me double check.
If you turn to the next tab, if you would, on that Defense Exhibit C. You know what those are? The highlighted portions.
Oh, yes.
What are they?
They're missed telephone calls.
And when do they start?
They start at 13:36 hours, which would have been 1:36.
And who are the highlighted calls from? And to?
They're from Rob Limon, his phone, and there were 5 to the home telephone number, and then 2 to Sabrina Limon's cellular telephone.
And are there continuing phone calls that are missed to Rob Limon's phone?
I didn't understand the question.
Sure.
Talk about the next page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there calls being made to Robert Limon's phone on that next page that are highlighted?
Yes.
And are they calls being made from their home number to Robert Limon's cell phone?
Yes, they are.
And approximately how many phone calls that were missed during on that page from the home phone to Robert Limon's phone were there?
Approximately 17.
And when did the phone calls start? What time?
On this page, they started at 19:29 hours.
And that would be at approximately 7:29 p.m. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when's the last missed phone call made to Robert's phone from Ms. Limon's home phone?
On this page, the last one that's noted here is at 20:24 hours, which would have been 8:24 p.m.
That would be also consistent with what Ms. Limon told you during the course of the interview with regards to her attempts to contact her husband on the day he was killed, correct?
That's correct.
Now, Detective Meyer, how many times since you were assigned to this case have you been back out to the location of where the homicide took place?
I believe approximately 3 times, 3 to 4 times.
Okay. When you were there the first night that
Correct.
the homicide occurred, you, I think, indicated you went back a few days later. Is that right?
That's correct.
You remember what day that was?
I don't.
Okay. Do you have a report that you wrote in connection with your returning to the crime scene to go over the scene again?
That would have been documented under the technical investigator's report because he's the one that took the swabs for DNA.
Well, you went out there and made observations, right?
I went out there to check the scene out again, yes.
Okay. Did you record and indicate in any report you wrote that you were at the scene and that you made these observations?
At that point in time, I did not.
Have you since?
I'm sorry?
Have you since?
No.
Now, you indicated that you saw I believe you said it was a gouge or something, I think you said, in the area of the light fixture. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you have the technical investigators photograph what your observations when you were there with the ladder?
I would have to check the technical investigator's report. I know originally it was photographed. When we went back to take a look at the scene again and get the swabs, I'm not sure if he rephotographed it or not.
Okay. Who was the technical investigator that was out there with you?
I believe that day it was Kevin Thompson.
He's already testified here earlier, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Certainly, if he had actually taken photographs, wouldn't Mr. Smith ask him about that?
Maybe not at this point in time in the trial, sir.
Okay. So what you're saying is he'll bring him back and he'll be able to testify about the photographs that he took of these gouges that you saw in the light fixture.
I wasn't for sure if there were photographs taken at the time, so if he didn't take photographs, he wouldn't be able to testify to that. And I'm not exactly sure what Mr. Smith has planned for Kevin Thompson later.
Now, on all these photographs on People's Exhibit 8, the large roll-up door, which was the entrance, if you will, at least the vehicle entrance into that particular suite, was up. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many times when you were out there and you observed the building was the door closed?
I believe it was up the second time I went back, but the other times I had driven through the parking lot, it was closed.
This is when you were driving through the parking lot. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, during the course of the interview with Ms. Limon, she also indicated that it was not unusual if during the course of his workday when Robert was in Tehachapi that he would, how would I put it, say crash, would catch a nap, if you will, during the workday if he wasn't out on a call.
Yeah, she said it was common for the employees sometimes to take a nap and get rest during the shift.
So, with regards to whether or not the large door was up or down, you don't know whether or not he might have been catching a nap and lowered all the doors and closed down the building so no one would get into the building when he was sleeping, right?
That would be an assumption. I don't know for sure.
Okay. You don't know?
I do not know.
Okay. Did you ever ask any of the other BNSF employees who worked there if they caught naps when they were working and how they handled the building as far as securing the building when they were sleeping?
I don't believe we did.
Now, you indicated that at some point you got a search warrant for Jonathan Hearn's cell phone. Is that right?
That's correct, we did.
Okay. Approximately when was that you obtained that search warrant?
I don't remember the exact date. I believe one of the other detectives authored that warrant for me, if I recall.
Well, what point was it that you first found out about Jonathan Hearn being a potential suspect that would cause you to get a search warrant?
After I received information from the friend Jason Bernatine, I started doing some investigative leads through Jonathan Hearn, his vehicles he drove, types of firearms he owned. At that point, we had enough information to author a search warrant.
When was it that you were told about Jonathan by the Bernatines?
I believe that was on August 29th, somewhere around that date. I'd spoken with Jason Bernatine.
I have no further questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Detective Meyer, during your course of being at the shop, were you able to find out if anything had actually been taken from the BNSF shop on August 17, 2014?
Yes, sir.
What did you find had actually been taken?
Objection. Hearsay.
Subject to a motion to strike, I'll allow it at this time, Mr. Terry. You can answer, Meyer.
We had learned during the course of the investigation, initial investigation at the shop, that a laptop owned by BNSF was stolen, a Toshiba, dark in color.
Objection, lack of foundation, move to strike.
Sustained.
Who did you perform the investigation with to see if anything had been taken?
There were other BNSF employees that arrived, and one who assisted with the investigation was I believe he was a special police officer at the time, Thomas Gates.
And Thomas Gates was able to provide information as to what had been taken from the scene.
Yes, he did.
What type of item are we talking about that he provided information for?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Toshiba laptop that was stolen from the office.
Now, with that information that you received from Mr. Gates, what did you do?
We received the information from laptop, such as the serial number, and I believe he also gave us the BNSF employee or the employer identification number they had placed on the laptop, and we were able to place that in the stolen property system.
Now, when you place something in the stolen property system, what type of, you get a printout or what do you get?
You can get a printout for that was entered into the system, and basically if an officer runs across that piece of item and they check the serial number with it, it'll show up stolen.
Now, during the course of the investigation, 2014 until now, did that item ever pop up based on inputting it into the system?
All right, at this point, I want to take this beyond the scope of cross.
Smith?
A request to reopen, then, Your Honor. The court would allow.
Granted.
The item was never located through somebody running that serial number and locating the item. It was located at a later time, though.
Okay. But as to the system you inputted the serial number into, that never provided information that it had been found?
No, sir.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Terry. All right. Step down, Detective. For now, correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Smith?
People call Jason Bernatine.
Sir, could you step up to the podium for me, please? Raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
This podium right here?
Yes, sir.
You do solemnly state that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Come on up, have a seat. Go ahead and pull your chair up, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell us your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Jason Anthony Bernatine. My last name is Bernatene.
Thank you. Your witness, counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Bernatine, how are you employed?
I work for San Bernardino County Fire Department.
And how long have you worked for the San Bernardino Fire Department?
I've worked there since 1997 and since 2001 full-time.
When did you first come into contact, or when did you first meet Robert Limon?
I met Robert Limon, I believe, sometime in 2008.
Now, in 2008, where were you living?
I was living in Silver Lakes on Topmast. Would you like the address?
Please.
13935 Top Mass Drive.
Now, at that time, did you visit the Limon residence when you first met them?
Yes.
Where were they living?
They lived on Strawberry. I don't know the address.
Now, how did you first come to meet Robert?
My wife became friends with his wife, and then eventually I met Rob. I think the first time I met him was at a barbecue at his house.
Now, the time frame we're talking about, is that still 2008?
Yes.
Did it take a while to become friends, or what
No.
happened?
Rob was a really likable guy. So was Sabrina. And we became friends very fast. He was a really friendly guy.
I'm just giving you the time frame, 2008, 2014. How often would you hang out with the Limons?
Often. I work a lot, so my time was spent a lot at work, but my wife hung out with them very often, and when I was off, we usually saw them once, twice a week, if not more.
Now, in the time that you did spend with them, what did you do?
We did a lot of things. Everything from doing things with our kids to attending parties together. We'd be at each other's houses a lot. Go out on Rob's boat. Go hiking. Play golf. Play horseshoes. Hang out at the lake. We did a lot of holiday things together, a lot of holiday events.
You said that you met Rob in 2008. Is that around the same time you met Sabrina?
I actually met Sabrina first. She would come over to my house with my wife, so I met her first.
When did you meet Jonathan Hearn?
I don't actually remember the time that I met Jonathan Hearn. I would have to say possibly 2010, 2011.
How did you come into contact with him?
He was employed at the same place I was employed at. We were not working at the same fire station. He worked at a different fire station, and he was an apprentice. His job title was called LT, which is limited term. So his position was temporary. He didn't receive benefits, and his main job was working on an ambulance. My job was working on a fire engine. So I frequently worked overtime at his fire station and would work shift with him.
How long did this shift overlap with Jonathan Hearn? How long did it last?
The shift would be 24 hours.
Okay. How well did you get to know him in around 2010?
Pretty well. It's a family in the fire station, so we spend a lot of time with each other. I probably worked 20 shifts with him.
What were your initial impressions of Jonathan Hearn?
My initial impressions of Jonathan is I was very impressed with him as a young man. He was very young. He was 21, and he was a paramedic. So to become a paramedic, you have to be 21. And that means that he had planned his life ahead of time to become a paramedic as he turned 21, which is pretty hard to do. He was also very intelligent, very well-spoken, very proper. Inside the fire station, he struck me as kind of sheltered. He didn't cuss very much. He seemed like he was always writing some kind of paper or working on something. I was very impressed with how he treated patients. He was a very good paramedic, and I told him on several occasions that he was too smart to be a fireman, that he should become a doctor or a lawyer. And he told me that he just loves being a fireman.
Did you tell your wife about Jonathan Hearn when you first met him?
I don't know if I told her when I first met him, but eventually I told her about him. I talk about a lot of the guys I work with to her.
You said in this time frame we're talking about 2010, you did about 20 shifts with Jonathan Hearn.
Yeah, roughly. It's a guess, but I did a lot of shifts.
What was the reason that you no longer worked with Jonathan Hearn?
He got hired full-time with Redlands Fire Department, so he left that limited term position.
So when, after you worked those 20 shifts, when's the next time you came into contact with Jonathan Hearn?
The next time I actually came into physical contact.
Either by a phone or
Okay.
contact.
So the next time was by text. He texted me. So it was not unusual for people that I work with to have each other's phone numbers. We needed to contact each other a lot during the day. So he had my number, I had his. I hadn't heard from him since he left for Redlands. Sabrina Limon said she met a fireman at Costco where she works, which was not uncommon. A lot of guys I worked with would stop by and talk to her. And then she would come and say, like, hey, I met one of your fireman friends. So for Jonathan, she said his name's John. And I know a lot of Johns that are firemen, so I started naming them. And none of them rang any bells. So I said, well, next time you see him, ask him where he works, and I can tell you who he was. And it wasn't very long after she said he works for Redlands. So I'm like, oh, that must be Jonathan Hearn. I don't remember when that was, but it wasn't very long that I started receiving text messages from Jonathan.
Okay. And what was the context of those, or content of those text messages?
He said, hey, Jason, how's it going? He gave me some compliments. He complimented me. He said, hey, you're somebody I really like, and I missed you. And I talked with Sabrina. It sounds like you guys have a lot of fun out there at the lake, and I'd love for you to invite me out sometime.
Okay. Did you respond to those text messages?
Yeah, I did. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Sometime, how you doing? How's Redlands treating you? And I told him I'd invite him out.
Okay. Did you invite him out?
I never actually did. Yeah, I never did.
Okay. And just one question. You call it Silver Lakes? Is that
Silver Lakes, yeah.
Where's Hellendale?
Hellendale is in the Mojave Desert in San Bernardino County. And Hellendale is a little township, and inside of it is a housing tract. It's a private community called Silver Lakes. In there's a couple lakes, a golf course, about 3,500 homes.
Okay. So after this text, I guess, back and forth with Jonathan Hearn, when's the next time you had either phone contact or personal contact with Jonathan Hearn?
So the text messages, they would come, and I never really thought anything of it, but then they started coming more frequent to the point that I actually started to feel a little weird about it. He always had a habit of complimenting me, which guys don't normally do that when they send each other text messages. And it got to the point to where I started having a joke with my wife at the time, like, hey, I think this guy likes me. Read this text message. And we'd kind of laugh about it. So those text messages started coming multiple times a week, which it was odd. And then one day in March, a lot of our friends had birthdays. So we always did something in March. And this year, we were going to meet at a bar that Sabrina had a coworker that was playing in a band. And so we all piled in cars. There was probably 10 of us from Silver Lakes, and we go to the bar.
And where was the bar located at?
In Hesperia.
Hesperia. Okay.
So it was about 30 minutes away.
And do you recall who set up this trip to the bar?
Sabrina.
All right. What happened when you arrived at the bar?
So we got to the bar, and it was kind of crowded. But when we walked in, I saw 3 guys that I recognized from work. And one of them was Jonathan Hearn. So I was like, hey, how you doing? How you guys doing? I went and actually had a beer with them at the bar. And, you know, they asked me what I was doing there. I'm like, hey, I'm here with my friends from Silver Lakes. And, you know, I sat with them for probably 20 minutes and then went back and hung out with the group I came with.
Okay. So you hung out with Jonathan for about 20 minutes or just with the group of other firefighters?
Jonathan and the group there was one other fireman and one gentleman that worked for an ambulance company.
Okay. Now, did you see where Jonathan went after you were done speaking with him?
I did. I introduced those guys to everybody I brought. And Jonathan and Sabrina knew each other prior because they met at Costco. And he started hanging out with Sabrina and her cousins. I remember sitting at the bar and taking, like, noticing that, like, because Jonathan never struck me as a person that was very social in that type of sense. He was more reserved. So to see him go and hang out and, like, make friends that fast, I was really impressed with him.
Now, following this meeting at the bar, did you get any further text messages from Jonathan?
Yes, the text messages still came.
Was the content the same?
For the most part, up until a few months later.
Why do you say a few months later?
He sent me a text message one day when I was working on I bought a new house and we were rehabbing it. Robert Limon was there and my wife was there and we were fixing the house up, doing some drywall work, and I got a text message from Jonathan, except this one just said, hey, Jason, I need your buddy Rob's phone number. Can you call me?
Okay. Did you call him?
I did.
Was Robert at your home at the time that you called Jonathan that we're speaking about?
He was in my home. So the text message just seemed a little weird to me. And my wife had said that Sabrina had been acting strange lately, and she told me she knew.
Smith, that's a statement by your opponent, 1220. On the other hand, it's coming through him, so there's a gap. Sustained.
Understood. Were you present when Jonathan Hearn called your house to speak with Robert?
Yes.
Okay. Is that in the same time frame?
Yes. So what had happened is he texted me. I thought the text was weird. I called him, and I'm like, hey, Jonathan, what's up, man? Why do you need Rob's phone number? And he said, oh, I just really need...
Yes. Did you provide the phone to Robert at any time with Jonathan on the line?
I did.
Okay.
So...
Did you see how long that conversation was between Robert and Jonathan?
Yes. It was approximately 45 minutes, an hour.
Now, once the phone call was ended, what was Robert's demeanor? How was he acting?
He, there's more to this. I don't want to cause problems, but
I'll worry about who's causing problems. Ask your next question, Mr. Smith.
okay. So his demeanor was, there was a problem during the conversation, and that's why he spoke with Jonathan. I asked Rob if we needed to do something about this problem, and Rob said no, it was handled.
Next question. It'll be strict.
When's the next time you had contact with Jonathan Hearn?
So the next time I spoke with Jonathan, I was coming back from a doctor's appointment. We stopped at Costco, and my wife went into Costco. I stayed in the car. I wasn't able to walk on my knee. She came out upset, and she said she just saw Jonathan.
Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you go into Costco that day and see Jonathan?
I did not. I had called him after that.
Okay. And what did you tell Jonathan when you called him?
So I called Jonathan, and we had a previous conversation where I told him to stay away from the Limons. So when I found out that he was there and I was talking to Sabrina, I told him, what are you doing? You were supposed to stay out of that Costco. You were supposed to stay away from Sabrina. He then told me,
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
What's the time frame of the call that you're talking about to Jonathan Hearn to stay away from Sabrina?
it was approximately 15 minutes.
What year did that take place?
It'd be the year Rob passed away. Sometime around February, January, February.
Where were you when you first learned about Robert's murder, being murdered?
I was in my home.
Once you found out, what did you do?
We didn't know Rob was dead. We knew there was something had happened to him, so we drove to Sabrina's house.
Now, in the weeks following, did you either receive any text messages from Jonathan Hearn, or see him in person?
So Rob died on Sunday. We had the funeral the following weekend. That following Friday, I received a phone call from Jonathan Hearn.
Did you ever see Jonathan in the area of Silver Lakes or Hellendale after the death of Robert?
Yes.
Okay. When did you see Jonathan?
I saw him drive through the intersection of Hellendale Road and Vista Road from my fire station.
Okay. Do you recall the approximate date or how long after Robert's death?
I don't. It was sometime within the 2 to 3 months after Rob's death.
After Robert's death, did you ever speak with Sabrina about Jonathan Hearn?
I did.
What did she tell you?
I had found out that Jonathan had brought her flowers. I had called Detective Meyer the previous Friday after Jonathan had called me, and had a meeting set up with Detective Meyer that Monday. So I called Sabrina to actually have her come and meet me when I was meeting Detective Meyer, but I did not tell her that that was the reason I needed to meet her. She did not show up at that time. She left a voicemail at 10 o'clock that night saying that she could not make it. The following morning, I called her, and I had not decided if I was going to tell her that I had talked with Detective Meyer or not. But I did want to address the fact that Jonathan went to her house, and I told her that I did not trust Jonathan, that he had tried to use me in the past to get close to her. And I told her about the text messages he was sending me to try to invite him out to Silver Lakes. At that time, she told me that she doesn't have a right to turn anyone in her life away, and that she gets that guy. At that time, I decided I was not going to tell her that I talked to Detective Meyer. That conversation lasted probably 10, 15 minutes.
Now, when you met with Detective Meyer, did you provide any letter that you had received from Jonathan Hearn?
Not at that time.
Okay.
I provided him with a voicemail that Jonathan had left me.
Okay. So the audio that you received from Jonathan, you gave that to Detective Meyer?
Yes. That was the Monday where I first met Detective Meyer in person.
Okay. Did you also provide Detective Meyer some text messages that you had received as well?
Yes, I gave him all the text messages that Jonathan had sent me.
Okay. Did you ever receive a letter from Jonathan Hearn?
I did.
How long was it between receiving the voicemail from Jonathan to receiving the letter from Jonathan?
Probably 2 weeks. Maybe less than that. It might have been a week. I can't remember.
Mr. Smith? Is that a good spot? All right. Let's take our morning recess there, 15 minutes. Remember not to form or express any opinion nor discuss the case. See you all back in 15 minutes.